This is one of the few studies you want to know of ahead of time as opposed to later on, primarily because the benefit that was yielded was quite substantial compared to the other groups being tested. Now, this is a randomized controlled study. Now, what we had is three groups. You have a time-restricted eating group, a caloric-restricted eating group, and you had a control group. Now, I want you to keep this in mind that this is a dieting strategy. The tactics per se could be the types of foods consumed within the strategy itself, whether it be low carb, vegetables, fruits, so on and so forth. But the reason I am leading with the conclusion is because of how vitally important it is to catch the audience's eye in the beginning, because it could save them a lot of struggle later on. So what happened was this. You have three groups. Your time-restricted eating group, which consumed all their calories between noon and 8 p.m. No restriction, nothing like that, just all consumed between 12 and 8 p.m. Then you have your caloric restriction group, which is basically a traditional strategy in regard to dieting, which they're reducing the number of calories consumed by about 25% throughout the day over a period of 6 months. Now, keep in mind, this is an interesting study because people that tend to have diabetes tend to have more medication burden in regard to blood pressure medications, cholesterol-lowering drugs, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things that have the opportunity to interfere with metabolism. And then you have, again, the control group, which is the 24/7 partying. Now, the reason it's important to start with the lead with the conclusion is this. The caloric restriction group, which spent 6 months reducing their caloric intake down by 25% per day, yielded no additional benefit over the control group. And what was the control group? The ones that partied 24/7 that didn't do anything different. They consumed their diet as normal from the beginning of the study to the end of the study. Compared to the time-restricted eating group, the TRE group, who consumed all their calories between 12 and 8 p.m. Even though they did not restrict calories, they lost a significant amount of fat mass. And that is why I wanted to show you that right off the bat before we begin to lose the attention of the audience. That is significant. So if an individual is choosing a strategy, not what type of foods and so on and so forth, but an overall strategy, the one thing they may want to talk over with their dietitian, because some people are taking medications they have to consume with food, is basically the TRE, which is an interesting evolution because those that followed our channel here notice how we went from caloric restriction to intermittent fasting. Now we're ending up somewhere in the middle here called TRE, time-restricted eating. So without further ado, let's get into the details of the study itself to elaborate or elucidate more of how this outcome became as is. To proceed, what is the best dieting strategy for people with type 2 diabetes? Losing weight is often a goal for people with type 2 diabetes, which is strongly associated with being overweight or obese. However, it has not been clear what dieting strategy works best for people with this metabolic disorder. A new randomized controlled study of people with type 2 diabetes showed that study participants who restricted eating between noon and 8 p.m. daily lost more weight than those who reduced their overall calorie intake by counting calories. Both dieting strategies produce similar improvements in blood sugars, but that's not the point. But to proceed, study parameters. The study included a group of 75 racially and ethnically diverse people between 18 and 80 years of age with obesity and type 2 diabetes. Participants were placed into 1 to 3 groups: time-restricted eating, calorie restriction, or control. Wow, what a great gift to be in the TRE group overall. The people in the time-restricted eating group ate only between noon and 8 p.m. To reiterate, while the calorie restriction group could eat any time of the day, but counted their calories on a certain app, with the goal of reducing their caloric intake by 25% of their maintenance calories. The calories needed to maintain their current weight. The control group continued eating their normal diet. Ad lib. The results. Over the course of the 6-month study, the researchers found that people in a time-restricted eating diet lost 3.55% of the body weight relative to the control group. This would be the equivalent of a person that weighs 275 pounds losing just under 10 pounds. The calorie restriction group did not lose any weight relative to the control group. This is why I found it very vital to get this information out to you now, prior. Again, they can be confounded in regard to certain medications and so forth that can interfere with the metabolism itself. But what a gift to know now, going in, as opposed to later on. To proceed. All studies were taking cholesterol and blood pressure medications, to reiterate, which makes it difficult to observe improvements in cardiometabolic risk factors. Conclusion. Quote, our study shows that time-restricted eating can be a good alternative for those with type 2 diabetes who want to lose weight and improve their blood sugar, according to the researcher. However, there are multiple types of medications for those with type 2 diabetes, some which can cause low blood sugar and need to be taken with food. To reiterate, therefore, it is important to work closely with a dietitian or doctor when implementing this dieting approach. Let's go back to the abstract in the primary study itself. The calorie restriction diet, as you see, is 25% energy restriction, which yielded no results compared to the control. The fat mass decreased significantly in the TRE group, and their conclusion, the findings suggest that the time-restricted eating produced a greater degree of weight loss, body fat loss, and increase in HDL over 6 months compared to caloric restriction and control. The only thing I could like to do if you had all the money in the world to improve this study was to have a crossover study with a washout period of time and see if you could yield the same results in individuals which are on the caloric restriction and or the control group itself. But however though, just the same, it looks like we're basically beginning to hone in on a really good strategy in regard to what dieting strategy operates the best. Foods chosen inside that strategy are your tactical approach. But on the outside, time-restricted eating compared to caloric restriction, wow, that is pretty cool results. Again, as always, you got to give gratitude to the researchers. This is the type of research that can yield people a lot of benefit in their daily life. And as always, we'll see you and I explore and discover next week. Gratitude, thank you, and look forward to you all once again next week. Again, TRE means time-restricted eating, and it's between noon and 8 p.m. Catch you all next time. See you then. Bye.